coming in, I think.
Somebody on that. Pretty good.
We've been talking about, specifically our topic is marriage and some of the subtopics that we've gone through. But right now, one of the things that was requested by this class was, how do you make your spouse, your mate, how do you make that person a priority in life? And we had just talked about, number one, just like anything, the priorities in your life, God's got to be first. In your life, He's got to be first in your marriage. When you get that, you've got a good portion of it on your way. And then the second, we talked about the marriage is a covenant. And let's go back and revisit that. There is a contract and there is a covenant. They're not the same thing. See if we can remember what the difference there is. And please, y'all speak.
Isn't the covenant between two people and God?
It does involve.
Usually it involves God.
It usually involves God. Okay. Could be between a nation and God. There's multiple covenants in the Old Testament. There was one with Adam. There's one with Noah. There's one with Abraham. Folks miss out on those, but there was multiple covenants.
Contract can be revised and broken.
It can. And if you break or become in breach of contract, the innocent party can do what? I'm out. The contract is no longer valid. Whatever work you've done, you donated it. I'm not paying you, or I'm going to take you to court. You got to pay to have the rest. That's the way that works. That is a contract.
It's temporary and the covenant is lasting.
Absolutely. A contract is based on you do your part and I'll do my part. What about a covenant? Think about the children of Israel and what they did to God over and over and over and over and over in the Old Testament. They rebelled.
I do my part even if you don't do your part.
It's not based on whether you are doing what you said you would do. A covenant says, I'm going to do what I've promised no matter what. And we started talking about some of the quote-unquote lines that are used for vows. This day and time, a lot of times these are written by each other. You don't necessarily say these things. We talked about sickness and in health. Did I tell you what the custom of taking the cake and feeding one another was? Did I tell you about that? Does anyone know what that is?
It's to prove that if you can no longer feed yourself, I'll feed you.
That is exactly what it is. That's how that custom came about. That's why you feed each other with the wedding cake. And there's some other things that if I do marriage counseling, I talk about some of the other things that are traditions that actually have some really deep meanings behind them. So in sickness and in health, it's not, if I get sick, you got to take care of me, but if you get sick, well, I'm done. Folks, there's a lot of marriages like that these days. For better or worse, how come for years all of these things were said? Not just one or two of them, every one of them is said. For better or worse. All right, couples. Have you had better times and worse times already? If you haven't, you better examine your relationship. It's not all roses. You better know what they're like now. Do they fight fair? If they don't, you better get that straightened out right now. And when I say fight, I don't mean be ugly. I mean a disagreement where each one of you is firmly entrenched that you think your way is the best. Can you come to an agreement? For better or worse, there'll be better times and worse times. And a lot of it is tied to this right here. I told you what the number one thing that causes divorces. Number one is lack of communication. Number two, money. I was watching a quick blurb the other day of the guy, and he was making $1 million a year. He's racking it up. And his wife said, "You know why we're not getting ahead the way that we had planned, getting ahead?" He said, "Well, we're doing all right. I mean, I'm making good money. You make good money." She said, "But do you know why we're not where we said we would be right now?" So they sit down and they went line by line of purchases that each one of them did. And he said, "I got defensive. And then I realized it was me. I didn't realize that I was spending $25 here and $50 there and 75 here and 150 there. And before you know it, I spent $300 or $400 in a week that I didn't even realize I'd spent." Money can cause a lot of problems. Make sure that y'all have talked about money. What kind of accounts are you going to have? Now, I'll tell you right now, we have multiple accounts. Diane and I have multiple accounts. There's the mission account, there's a farm account, there's, I don't know how many bank accounts. How many do we have?
5. But we're both on all of them. It kind of, well, and one of them helps with it too, but like, it's kind of like my own version of the Dave Ramsey envelopes put in a checking.
We know, like, I use a debit card a lot. But there's a card for gas and groceries. There's a card for us eating out and entertainment. And then we have a card if we're going to do a large purchase and then pay it off really quick or whatever. But did y'all catch what she said? We are both on all of those accounts. She has the same access to them than I do. And most of you probably figured out she probably has better access to it than I do because I didn't realize we had 5 accounts.
You did, you thought about it.
I would have come up with them. Talk about money. Budgeting is hard to do because it means you sit down and agree, this is what we're going to spend, and both of you have to agree on that, and you have to hold each other accountable for that. And that's tough. That means you don't even get to spend that $5 or $10 on some little something that you just want to get your partner because you want to do that for them. If there isn't a fund for that with money in it, you don't get it. And that's tough. Maybe it's me. Have y'all noticed how much more difficult it's getting to give people gifts the older they get? Because what do when they decide they need something or want something?
Buy it.
They go buy it. And now they have it, and you don't have that option for... That's the society we live in. If I decide I need it, I want it, and the money is there, and too many times that money's on a credit card, it's not really there, but it's available, I go on and buy it. Make sure you talk about money. Till death do us part. Not until I get tired of you snoring at night. Not until, and this is what you hear, not until I just don't love them anymore. Till death do us part. We started out talking about the word covenant. We talked about the fact that it's between at least 2 people, sometimes an entire nation. But who was the important one that's involved in that? You said it before, Jackson. God. That's what the marriage is meant to be, and that's why those things are said like that. It's meant to be a permanent thing. That's why it is so important that you find the right person and you learn about that person as much as you possibly can before you decide that I'm going to spend the rest of my life. Because what you're saying is, I want to make a life with you. In good times and bad, better or worse. I want to make a life with you when you're sick and I'm having to carry all the load. I want to make a life with you when we're barely meeting the payments at the end of the month. And those times that there's plenty of money left over. We've even got money to do a little vacation or something. Till death do us part. Not until I change my mind. All right. The next part. It's just straightforward. You've got to choose your mate, your spouse, whatever you want to call it. You've got to choose them every day. It is a conscious choice every day. You got to choose to love them. Now, I'm going to use scriptures. Now, listen here. These scriptures are not necessarily talking about a husband and wife relationship. So we will take them in context, but I want you to see if you can't apply that principle here. Matthew 5, 43 through 48. Matthew 5, 43 through 48. Anybody recognize that chapter?
Sermon on the Mount.
Sermon on the Mount.
It says, "You have heard that it was said, you shall love your neighbor and hate your enemy. But I say to you, love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you, so that you may be sons of your Father who is in heaven. For he makes his sun rise on the evil and on the good, and sends rain on the just and on the unjust. For if you love those who love you, what reward do you have? Do not even the tax collectors do the same? And if you greet only your brothers, what more are you doing than others? Do not even the Gentiles do the same? You therefore must be perfect as your heavenly Father is perfect."
Now that last statement is a tall order. Apply that to your mate. What did it say I had to do to my enemy?
Love them.
If I have to love my enemy, what does it tell you I ought to do for the person that I promised that I wanted to take care of and put second only to God for the rest of my life? You gotta love them all the time, even when it's really hard. And guys, sometimes we're hard to love. And ladies, sometimes you're hard to love. We get our feelings hurt. We forget that when we made those vows, I made those vows to her. Those things that I said I would do for her. I'm in essence saying, I'm putting you before myself. Think about the two most important commands when Jesus was tested. You love the Lord your God with all your heart, your soul, and your mind, and you love your neighbor as your... Did you get that? God, neighbor, where did self come? Last. We flip that. We love ourselves, and they ought to know what I want, and they ought to be treating me differently. And we choose to love ourselves instead of loving our spouse. And I'll guarantee you, if you want a marriage to fail, you choose you over your spouse, it will fail. It will fail. What good is it if you just love the people that love you? What good is it if you just love your wife when everything's going great and it's easy to love her? Now, he used some examples there that would have infuriated the Jews. I'm not like a Gentile. What do you mean? You're no better than the Gentiles. You're no better than anyone else if you only love the people that love you. And you promised in sickness and in health, for better, for worse, for rich or poor, till death do us part. You promised to love this person. And now, well, since they're not treating me the way that they said they would treat me, I don't think I love them anymore. Hey, here's a news flash. Maybe they aren't treating you the way that you want to be treated because you're not treating them the way they ought to be treated.
Sandy and I had a study the other night, and going back to whenever we were talking about submission, she kind of put that verse into perspective as far as it says, you know, wives submit to your husbands, and then husbands love your wives the same way that you would love the Lord. And she said, you know, if he's doing his part and he's loving you the way that you should, then it's going to be easy to submit to him. So I think that kind of goes hand in hand on, if you're doing this, then it's going to be easy to do this. If you're not doing this, then it's not going to be easy to do that. But not a reason to split.
That's right.
But just, I think it goes back to that.
And I'm going to come right back around to it. Guys, the bottom line is the majority of the weight and the responsibility for a relationship to work falls squarely on your shoulders. Now, I could not do the things that I do without Diana. She is my memory. She takes care of making sure I'm where I'm supposed to be preaching on whatever day I'm supposed to be there, or where I'm supposed to be staying if I'm in Africa, or what plane I'm supposed to be on. She takes care of all of that behind the scenes, so I don't have to do it. I could not do what I do without her. It took me a long time to figure that out. Because I thought, well, she's just supposed to do that. No, she's not just supposed to do that. But she does that so I can do the things that I do. That is right now her contribution because of other things that are happening in her life. She can't go with me to Africa. Maybe one day. But she can set things up to make sure that I am where I'm supposed to be, so I don't have to worry about those things, and I can work on studying and things like that. Love them. All right. Yeah, y'all are being quiet, so I'm going to bring it home. Ever been mad at your sibling? Wow, that's a tough one. Two of them sitting right there. It'd be rough with it. You got to admit being mad at your sibling every now and then. Have you ever been mad at your sibling? Now this one's going to get real close. Your mom or your dad. Have you ever been mad at them? I don't mean just a little upset. I mean mad. Y'all better people than I am then. I was. I didn't like the answer I got sometimes. I don't know why you said no. You should have said yes. There's nothing wrong with this. Why didn't you say yes? Did I stop loving him? No. Did I stay mad for a while? Yeah. But what does a good parent do? Even when the kid verbalizes, and I hope y'all don't experience this, but it's pretty tough to hear. When your child looks you square in the face and says, I hate you. What does a good parent do? Loves them through it. And it's tough. That's what you got to do. And once you say, I do, they're going to be so mad at you. And Lord willing, they certainly won't say they hate you. But they may give you the cold shoulder and not talk to you. You may want say something to him, leave me alone. You ever told somebody that and they just won't let it go? They just keep picking. Well, what's wrong? Well, tell me what's going on. What are you telling someone when you say, leave me alone? I need time just for me. I don't want to talk about it right now. Now, there's something else that will kill a marriage. If you never come back to it and discuss it, communication, it will kill a marriage. And there's some hard discussions. You know, sometimes you just have to look at somebody and say, you hurt my feelings. When you did this, this is how that made me feel. We are not good at that, guys. Ladies, guys aren't good at that. Don't expect us to be real good at it. You'll have to teach us. Rain in the sunshine and rain again tomorrow. Love. We're going to get to that more. We've already kind of hinted at it. It's more than just a feeling. It is a much deeper emotion than just butterflies in the stomach feeling. Much deeper. Choose daily to forgive. Matthew 6, 14 and 15. Again, not talking about the marriage bond, but listen to the principle that's there. Who's got Matthew 6, verses 14 and 15?
I got you. For if you forgive men their trespasses, your heavenly Father will also forgive you. But if you do not forgive men their trespasses, neither will your Father forgive your trespasses.
This is just talking about your fellow man. This doesn't even talk about close family relationships, and it's sure not talking about the marriage. But if I don't forgive, what do I stand in danger of when I stand before God? Jesus made it clear. What did you say? If you don't forgive,
God
oh, guys.
then God won't forgive you.
Now, does that need any clarification? Does that need any clarification? This is just your fellow man, your quote-unquote neighbor, a casual acquaintance. How much more do you think that applies to your spouse? But guess who is the person that can hurt you the deepest?
People that you love.
The ones that you love the most are the ones that can cut you the deepest. Because you allow them in. And sometimes because you have unrealistic expectations of them. That they'll never make a mistake and they'll always do the right thing and never say anything wrong. Sometimes we have unrealistic expectations. So let's talk about forgiveness. Every one of us has needed it, haven't we? Every one of us has asked for it, haven't we? Why would we withhold it from the person that we've told that we love them the most in the world, second only to God Himself? Why would we withhold that from them?
Be our pride.
Our pride.
We're stubborn.
We are stubborn. Or I'm going to make you feel the way you made me feel. See how you like it. Guess who I just chose?
Yourself.
I just chose me instead of my spouse. And I'm going to say it again. If you want a marriage to fail, you choose you instead of your spouse, and it will fail. Guys, this is tough stuff. I know it is. Tell me something in this world that's worth having that doesn't require some work. And the things that you have, I'm going to go to a physical thing. The things that you have that you probably care the most about, other than maybe something that has sentimental value that somebody gave you. But the things that you care the most about are the things that you work the hardest to obtain, that it cost you something. How many of you bought your first vehicle? Have you bought your first vehicle? Second. Did you buy your first vehicle?
No.
That's your first vehicle you bought, and yes, you have bought your first vehicle. How many of you have bought your first vehicle? How did it make you feel when you had your name on that title?
Pretty good.
I remember I bought my first vehicle. And I remember driving down the road. I was by myself that night, driving back home. And it just, I don't know where it hit me. This is mine. I bought this with my money that I worked to get. Now that can be dangerous going down that rabbit hole. But I'm like, so if anything happens to this is on me. I need to take care of this. The realization that this is on me. Same way with that relationship. This is a relationship that you've put your name on. Your name is on the marriage license, is on the title, if you will, to this new life. You better take care of it. You better be working together to take care of it. I remember my dad, I bought the truck. He's like, now that's yours. He said, you get out here and you can spin them tires and do all you want to, do donuts. When those tires wear out, you're going to put those tires on that truck. I'm like, okay, I got you. I mean, what 16-year-old boy don't want to see what his vehicle can do? And guys, it was hot. I had it at 120 and still had more to go one night. It was hot. I was down 500 feet at the little creek. I was catching minnows because we were going fishing that night, me and a couple of buddies. And I hear my truck crank up. See, Dad's got his, he's older. His is all quiet. Well, I had mine piped out. It sounded good, or at least I thought it did. And I heard it fire up. Who's going somewhere in my truck? But we live on a farm. It's nothing unusual to jump in anybody's vehicle. I mean, I might be my cousins, my uncles, whoever. So I didn't think anything about it. My dad came down there to where I was. He said, supper's ready. Could holler that from the front porch, but okay. Then my father proceeds to go back to the house backwards with the gas pedal flat on the floor. My tires are screaming. White smoke is coming off of them. Goes all the way back to the house doing that. I come up and my tires are still smoking. And I'm like, I got to replace the tires and you're the one to burn them up. That's not fair. That's not right. Your relationship. You're going to feel like somebody else is doing something they've warned you not to do, and they're doing it to you. And you're going to think that's not fair. That's not right. And it may not be. But what are you going to do about it? Are you going to hold a grudge? Or are you going to bring it to their attention and say, hey, we need to talk through this? Or are you going to just say, it's not that big a deal now? Give you some advice on, it's not that big of a deal. Can you keep putting up with it if they keep doing it? Can you keep putting up with it if it intensifies? Because it likely will. And you better make sure of that. Because if the answer to either one of those questions is no, then you've got to talk through it and you've got to figure out a way to get this sorted out. Last one, kindness. Matthew 7:12.
So whatever you wish that others would do to you, do also to them, for this is the law.
What do we call that? The golden rule. But the world today goes by what I call the iron rule. Have y'all heard the iron rule? Here's the iron rule. Iron rule. I can't talk tonight. Do unto others before they have a chance to do unto you. You get them before they get you. And that's what the world encourages today. I want you to seriously think about what society would be like if everybody lived by that principle. I'm going to treat anybody and everybody the same way that I want to be treated. Would you think about what a society would be like? Do any of you want anything stolen from you? Do you want somebody to violate your property, take it without asking? Then all theft would stop if people would do that, right? See where this is going? I mean, any of you like to be lied to? What would happen to lying if everybody treated others the way they didn't want to be treated? I don't want to be lied to, so I'm not going to lie to you. We like to be treated kindly. Treat others kindly. Now, I know there are folks out there, no matter how kind you treat them, they're going to be ugly back to you. I got that. The application in marriage. Kindness. Treat your spouse the way you want to be treated. Do you want to know? And this might be a loaded question. I might not really ask this, but I'm going to ask it anyhow. Do you want to know if you've hurt somebody? I think most of us do, especially if it's somebody we love. If we don't know we've done it, we want them to tell, hey, that hurt me. Do you have the nerve to tell them when they've hurt you? Because here's what happens most of the time. Well, they didn't mean to do it, or they didn't know they did it, and it's not that big a deal. They're going to keep doing it because they don't know that they've hurt you. Can you keep putting up with it? It's going to become more frequent or more intense. Can you keep up? Are you okay with that? Human nature is to avoid conflict. Conflict is not necessarily a bad thing. Conflict is a opportunity to grow and understand one another. But it's based on, how do I handle it? Is it out of love? Am I ready to forgive? And is it out of kindness? Folks, you got to choose those three things every single day of your marriage. I'm going to love them and I'm going to show them I love them today. I'm going to forgive them if they do something that hurts me. But folks, gotta let them know sometimes, because sometimes we hurt people and we don't know we've hurt them. We don't realize what we've done. And this is one of the most dangerous statements in marriage, and I've already said it once. Well, they ought to know. Go back and think. Have you discussed it? Have you told them that this type of behavior, or this type of kidding or picking or joking or whatever it is hurts your feelings? Or have you just kind of laughed about it and shoved it under the rug and went on? Now, if you talked about it and they've done it again, it's a different conversation. But if you've never talked about it, and in your mind, well, they ought to know better. No, they shouldn't. You ought to have told them. Those are tough things in a marriage. Because I don't want to hurt their feelings. I don't want to make them mad. Which would you rather tackle? A little problem? And be a little uncomfortable? Or a big problem and wind up having to go to some marriage counselor hoping you can save your marriage? Which one you want to do? Choose daily. Anybody got anything to add? I'm not going to start anything else tonight because it's almost time. Y'all haven't been this quiet in I don't know how long. Why?
Not done it before.
Yeah, you could have questions or comments.
I just haven't had much to add. I just like listening. Also, this is my first time being in here for a while.
It's been a while since you've been in. Are you in for the summer?
Yes, sir.
Are you really? Cool.
Since you've been
Good deal. Any questions? Let's see what we're going to next, just so you have an idea of what's going on. Maddie wants your notes from tonight. Next week, I will not be here. What do y'all want to do? What?
Sorry, I was looking at something.
Oh, y'all were looking at me like I had a third eye in my head. I thought it. I'm not going to be here next week. So what do y'all want to do? Somebody needs to know so they're at least have something ready for next week.
It can't be me.
Well, it could be. We can kick the guys to one direction and you to another direction and you can take care of it.
Yeah.
We'll have class.
You good with that? Dylan wants to come up with something. You guys will have class back here. The following week, I should be back, and here's what we will go. The next thing we're going to talk about is busyness can kill a marriage. And you're going to be surprised what I mean by busyness sometimes. Know your mate, their likes, their dislikes. Not just their favorite color, or, I mean, deeply know them. We're going to talk about truly committed to the marriage. And then we're going to get into how do I encourage my spouse? Making them a priority. How do I encourage them? And specifically, we'll talk about growing in the marriage, growing in their faith, growing in their duties in the home, in the family, whatever. How do I encourage them? We'll talk about that. And what you're going to find is a lot of the stuff is going to circle back in, and I've done that on purpose. So you keep hearing the same things over and over and over again, because all these principles, they keep resurfacing. And if you can do those, you'll have a strong marriage. But that's the biggest one right there. Put God first. Agree that God comes first. All right? I have no idea how far along they are. Do you know?
Cindy, open the door.
Go check it.